the Silicon Valley, there's actually very meaningful people that are Christians and non-Christians alike that are taking this seriously, that are trying to think through, how do we do this well? How do we do it carefully? And then what's very true, and this came out very clearly in the Anthropic convening, is that the forces that are at play here are so much more powerful than any one person. So anybody that says like, oh, well, they should just do this, whatever this is, it probably can't be done. When you build a car, you know what a car is before you build it. And this is the first time, maybe, in my knowledge, we built something and then we have to figure out. So there's a whole new field of like, what is this thing? They didn't actually build AI, they built the thing that built AI. And so they're fond of saying that AI has grown, not built. They built the trellis on which AI grew, and now we're trying to figure out what is this thing.
AI is a development in what it means to be human. And so this is fundamentally something, completely in a different space, which is why it needs these ethical and religious, conversations, faith conversations, so that we're framing it in a way that is completely different to what's happened previously.
I think because of the scale of it, so if we take back to social media, it was very much the digital team will deal with that, it's marketing, they do that over there. Whereas I think lots of people are saying, wow, AI is going to really change even organizational structure, development. So there's much more of an appetite to have the conversation, but almost understanding what the conversation is beyond your policy. There's a term thrown around, which is, we'll use AI in a way that it adds value. Well, value to who? And that is so different across many charities, churches, ministries.
All of those are going to require support structures around them. Just getting the models kind of better aligned is one thing, but the education that goes around it is going to be a huge other topic.
It's part of the reason for that, the pace of change.
It's partly the pace of change, but it's also that we are waiting on someone to come up with the answer, right? And so I think a lot of governments or a lot of industry groups in different sectors are waiting around for someone to come up with the answer from the companies. So I think part of our mission here is to try and do that for the church community and for the faith community. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Missional AI podcast, one that seems to be recorded in true 4K high def and with some amazing participants here at the studios at Premier Christian Radio, based here in central London on the eve of the Missional AI London Summit. And we are so glad that you're joining us for another episode. I have got some great guests with us who you're going to meet in a minute. I'm James Poulter, your host. And for the first time ever in one of these recordings, we are joined by a live studio audience. May we hear it for the studio audience. That's fun. We're so glad you're joining us. If you have not been part of the show before, then you can find lots of episodes from the show on Spotify, Apple Music, and on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, as well as all of the content from this year's conferences, both in San Francisco, here in London, and from our previous gatherings around the world. So we would love it if you would engage and get involved with that. And you can find out all the information you need about Missional AI at missional.ai. That's the notices out of the way. On to the main event. And I would first of all turn to my right, co-conspirator, and he's Scottish, don't hold that against him, it's Mr. Gareth Russell. Gareth from Jersey Road. Thanks.
Yeah, I expected a bigger response from the audience there, but fair enough. Yeah.
Very minimal, but that's fine. It's all right, they're getting carried away already. Gareth from Jersey Road, thank you so much for being with us, regular contributors to the show. We're also joined by Kit Powney, also at Tier Fund, as well as also working with a number of other organisations on digital transformation and AI. Kit, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Whereabouts do we find you in the journey with AI at the moment? Where are you spending your time?
Probably a mix between experimenting and playing myself, and helping organisations and teams navigate it. That might be, whoa, slow down, you need to think a bit more, or hey, this is okay, let's keep going.
Okay. Speed up, slow down definitely seems to be a theme at the moment. And all the way from the west coast of America, we decided to import one of our own family within the Missional AI world. Paul Taylor, thank you so much for being with us.
It's wonderful to be here.
Paul, you have come from a pastoral background and working in and around faith with the Faith Tech work, faith,
so
work,
close.
tech,
Faith, work, and tech. Yeah.
Faith, work, and tech
very close.
out there in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And recently joined us here in Europe for a couple of different gatherings. I understand you've just come back from Paris as well.
Yeah, I was speaking at a Faith and Work conference in Paris, and I was speaking in Croatia with a friend that does some work there, and hosting some things with Catholics and Protestants around AI. And now I'm in London.
And now you're in London.
It's wonderful to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. And we're going to cover a lot in this episode. We've also got some questions from the audience later on as well. And if you want to pose questions to any of these guys, the best way to do that is to drop comments below, and we will do our best to get back to those comments wherever you put them. So do that. But I want to kick off first of all with talking, Paul, actually I'll pick up with you. You have been tracking with this AI topic for a long time.
That's right.
Just tell us a little bit about how you first got involved in this topic and space, coming from the background that you've come from.
Yeah, I worked in tech for 7 years back when I say it's like we're building an abacus, because it was back in like 2000. So it was barely tech back then, but worked in tech and then served as 20 years as a pastor. And so I was a pastor in Palo Alto, where we were, a mile from Google and Meta and Apple and Intel and Tesla and all of the major companies. And so as a pastor, I always felt this burden of how do I help the people that are in my congregation who are working at these companies to use their faith to guide their decisions. And I never really had a great answer. And so in the last several years, I've gone back to school and I've got some study, and we started an organization to really help with that, help people in their workplaces to try to integrate their faith into what they're doing.
Do you think that Silicon Valley right now is a place that's hostile to faith, to one that's exploring it? What's the mood at the minute?
It's
in the
definitely
Valley?
less hostile than it used to be. Mm-hmm. It used to be, I wouldn't exactly say hostile. It's just like, keep it to yourself.
Okay.
It's just like, keep it in that part of your life and everybody will be happy.
Yeah, it's how Gareth feels of me talking about England.
That's fair. Yeah. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a little more open now. But even in that, there are some questions about whether that's entirely a good thing because of there's reasons. Some of the reasons it's more open are because of the political climate and because of some various high profile people that have talked about it, but it does seem that there's more openness to faith in general.
Do you think that's mostly the Peter Thiel effect at the moment? Kind of being out and around, for those that have been tracking, kind of Peter's been out doing these lectures and congregational meetings, and you've got Sam Altman talking about building God in a box.
There's some. I was actually at the Peter Thiel lectures, and I think the Peter Thiel lectures were more of a symptom of a larger movement. They didn't necessarily cause something, but they were part of that kind of opening up of things to faith in the Bay Area.
Yeah. We've just been joined by Eric Slerier in the back of the room, who's going to wave at us from Paris, which is who you were with
That's right.
just this past week. Many will know
I'm following
Eric.
him around. It's a great person to follow
He's
around.
a great person to follow around.
Yeah,
He's got great choices in wine and baguettes.
There you
I
go.
recommend both of those.
All right. We'll need a baguette then.
It's all right. We don't do stereotypes.
Very on brand.
It's highly accurate. So you've taken kind of what you've been learning there in Silicon Valley out to some of these European gatherings. So maybe if that openness is beginning to show first fruits in the Valley, how does that compare to what you're seeing in the European context?
Yeah, I think there's some good conversations. I think everybody's struggling with this. It's just amazing that this topic, you can go almost anywhere in the world and you can hear people talking about it. You can have meaningful conversations about it, which is really, I think, a good thing for the church because it becomes a unifying topic that we can talk about together. And so, Croatia, Paris, London, Africa, Asia, like everybody's talking about AI. Yeah. And so it's important for the church to show up in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've seen with a lot of the big model-making companies is they've actually also begun to lean into this discussion, most notably Anthropic. Yeah. Some people will have tracked with this in the news that Anthropic have been welcoming in faith leaders from different groups and those working in amongst the community, including several members of our community within Missional AI. And I believe you were at one of these recent gatherings. Right. Yeah. I know embargoes being what they are, you're only allowed to say so much, but what would you say was the tenor and the tone of those types of gatherings?
Yeah, I think the way they opened it was by saying, essentially, we're building something incredibly powerful here. And the posture was one of openness to say, we need other people from the outside to help us think through this. And really, the way it felt like was a sense of like, we feel the burden of this thing we're creating, and we want you to share that burden with us. wasn't immediately obvious what the practical ways to share that burden was. But so it's not as if they were saying, we have option A or option B. Which one do you think we should take? But they were definitely saying kind of, this is what we've done, and it's pretty remarkable. Right. There was a lot of comparison made to the Manhattan Project, and this sense of like,
encouraging.
It's really like this could go very well or this could go very poorly,
right.
and I think they're very aware of that reality, and so they're wanting to bring in. They've done at least 3 convenings that I know of. 2, I think, that focused on Christian groups, and 1 that was more of a faith kind of interfaith group with 14 or so religions, but it was very productive. It was just very much like, here's what's going on, here's what we're building, here's what we're seeing, and we want you to be included in it.
For the jaded and cynical comms professionals to my right, I mean, how do you guys feel about the idea of these big companies bringing in faith leaders? Does this strike you as posturing? Is this something that should be encouraged? Do you want to see more of it?
I think you've got to have a generous spirit in this, and I think if I was not aware of the social media companies doing this, back in the day,
and so very little.
Yeah, so I think the fact that Anthropic are doing this and other companies too, I think is a good thing. And probably they're not giving option A or option B because they don't know what option A or option B are. Right. And if they're genuinely asking those faith groups to shape some of that, then it can only be a good thing. Even if it just shapes some of it, it may not shape 100%, but if it shapes 5 or 10%, then that's better than it would have been.
Yeah, that's right. Kit, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the acknowledgement that what they are creating is really powerful and can have many impacts and effects. They could be negative, they could be positive, and the humility of that and inviting people in. I think that's really brilliant. I think it's something to encourage. We don't know what's going to come out at the end of it, but I think to be hopeful of it rather than sort of critical, I think is really important.
I think the other thing to say is that we also have a lot of people who are people of faith who are at the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff now and have something meaningful to say. So there's not just again, I don't think it's posturing because they actually have credibility in the space. And I were talking earlier about the fact that, again, with social, it felt like the church was way behind the curve when it came to kind of embracing it and seeing the potential of it and using it. Whereas for AI, it doesn't feel like that. I'm not saying we're kind of the cutting edge, but there's a lot of people having cutting edge conversations who are people of faith. And, the famous Vanity Fair article that was written a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, that was talking about, the faith of Silicon Valley. Whether or not that there is a political intention there must be some genuine stuff happening there as well. So for me, I am definitely a half glass full person, but I think there is a more meaningful conversation happening here in this space that has ever happened before.
I think that's what I see being outside of Silicon Valley is outside of Silicon Valley, people kind of refer to that space as this kind of godless, secular, like they're off and running and they're not thinking about what they're doing and they're just being, reckless. And in the Silicon Valley, there's actually very meaningful people that are Christians and non-Christians alike that are taking this seriously, that are trying to think through how do we do this well? How do we do it carefully? And then what's very true, and this came out very clearly in the Anthropic convening, is that the forces that are at play here are so much more powerful than any one person. Yeah. So anybody that says like, oh, well, they should just do this, whatever this is, it probably can't be done, just this. Because you have to do certain things, you have to keep your shareholders, you have to keep moving, you have to keep innovating. And so the kind of train is really running, and it's very hard to figure out the meaningful choices you can make within the system that exists.
Yeah. And I mean, as we see this past week or so, Anthropic themselves releasing this new paper trying to unpick what's going on inside of these models that are, talking about this idea of the J space, this, place between the model training and the model output where it does some kind of weird unconscious thinking thing. It seems to me that the more we learn about these models, the harder it is to actually understand what they are. Right. And so the idea that any of these people can actually fix that seems hard to get your hand around. Well, this is
the first technology. There's a whole new field called interpretability, which is basically what did we build? And most technology to this point, like when you build a car, you know what a car is before you build it. And this is the first time, maybe in my knowledge, we've built something and then we have to figure out.
Yes.
So there's a whole new field of like, what is this thing?
Yes, like when I used to work at Lego, and when we would kind of do these play challenges and someone would be like, can you just build something? And I put the bricks together and then I would sit back and go, I have no idea what I have built, because I'm more of a follow the instructions kind of guy. But this seems to be the way that these guys are approaching this problem.
It's just amazing. And it has to do with the technology. It has to do with, they didn't actually build AI. They built the thing that built AI. Yeah. And so they're fond of saying that AI is grown, not built. They built the trellis on which AI grew, and now we're trying to figure out what is this thing.
I think the other thing, just to say that I think the reason that the faith conversation is important here is that previous technological advances, the Gutenberg press was really an advancement in distribution and communication. The social media was an advancement in connection, well, whether you agree with it's proper connection or not, but this is the AI is a development in what it means to be human, and so this is fundamentally something completely in a different space, which is why it needs these ethical and religious conversations, faith conversations, so that we're framing it in a way that is completely different to what's happened previously.
And so, I mean, Anthropic and others are bringing in people from the faith world to help them understand what's going on inside the technology world. I mean, maybe to flip the thing around for you guys who are working with many of those in the faith sector, non-profits, churches, denominations, how willing at the moment are churches and non-profits to bring in the tech people to come and talk to them about how to do their thing?
I don't think there's one response.
Come on, diplomatic answers only.
Only. Yeah, I think it's such. I think because of the scale of it. So if we take back to social media, it was very much the digital team will deal with that. It's marketing. They do that over there. Whereas I think lots of people are saying, wow, AI is going to really change even organizational structure, development. So there's much more of an appetite to have the conversation, but almost understanding what the conversation is beyond your policy. Yeah. Like, we need a policy for risk. We need a policy so staff know what they're doing, but then what? And I think that's where people are now thinking, we can't afford to hire in. So, how can we get people in? Charities are working together. Or probably every single charity event right now is focused on AI and the various elements of it, because there's not that in-house capacity.
I mean, what is the then what? So, okay, we've bought a bunch of licenses to Copilot, then we pray for those people. And then after that's happened, maybe the license and the policy kind of gets sorted out. But I mean, where does it, pick up after that? Like, what type of things are ministries that are actually pushing the envelope? What are they actually doing?
So I think in my work, I call it finding the edges. So you've got your strategy, or you've got your policy, and what's the gap between that and execution? But understanding, I think there's a term thrown around, which is we'll use AI in a way that it adds value. Well, value to who? And that is so different across many charities, churches, ministries. And that conversation is not as simple as saying, yeah, we've got this beautiful policy and it says all these things that we've seen written in reports and we should put them in. It's actually wrestling. And I do a lot of conversations with people, like sort of pushing the boundaries of, when you say that, do you mean this? And they're like, oh, no. And I'm like, well, tell me why. Like, what's that? What is that? Okay, that's a boundary for you. Or, what's your actual mission? Because we don't want to, and I say this a lot, I don't want to make people like super AI users. I want them to use technology, not just AI, for their charitable purpose, for their mission, for their ministry. And it's navigating that conversation, which is iterative and messy and uncomfortable, because it's not just like social media. I'm going to post it here and then I'm going to put it across the other channels, which is not where social media is now. But back when it sort of launched, it was much more formulaic, whereas AI is surfing a wave.
And I think it is nuanced here, isn't it? Because there's a danger in ministries thinking that the one who uses AI the best will be the most effective, or will be the one who can raise the most money, or be the most long-term. But actually, AI has to serve your mission. So you could be the best in the world at using it, but if it doesn't serve what you exist for, then it's pointless. And so there is a danger of the tech becoming the focus rather than the mission, and we need to make sure that balance remains in scale.
Yeah. Are you guys feeling this? And people look to nonprofits and some of the churches in the US where there's, and having been in ministry yourself as well, where often there's a lot more resource. The church organizations, the parachurch organizations are just financially better resourced than many of the ones here in the UK and in Europe. Are they seeing the same struggles, or is this universally kind of a different problem?
Yeah, I think there's so many levels about how churches are wrestling with it. I mean, they're trying to figure out how should we use it as a church. So should we have a chatbot on our website that's trained on the sermons? Should we have a Ask Pastor Dave bot, on our homepage that can, and some churches say yes, some churches say no. So they're trying to figure that stuff out. And then, how do we teach our 23-year-old youth pastor when they should use it and when they shouldn't use it? And should they write their sermons? No, but can they, so those kinds of things. And then how do we train our parents of kids? So the layers of things are just like piling on. And then there's the thing that you're talking about where I think some people that are a little more savvy have this sense of like, I have like all these magic wishes in my pocket, but I'm not sure how to use them. Yeah. And I feel like if I knew how to use them, I could do incredible things, but I don't know how to use them. Yeah. And then there's this almost like fear of missing out on the power of AI. So then there's this other anxiety of like, I'm not using it as well as I should be. And it's just crazy.
But it's the same point, isn't it? Because like if a church now, taking AI out of the thinking for a second, which I know we can't do in an AI podcast, but if you think about right, exactly. If you think about like right now, there are churches where people are part of that community, not because they've got a great website or because they've got a great social presence, but because they've got real connection with people. Yeah. And it's a small church maybe, but they've got a real connection with people. They really feel a sense of the mission. There's other people who love the fact that their church has a great website, can speak to Pastor Dave's chatbot. Right. And so that's what I mean by the text not serving, the text serving the mission rather. So who do you want to be as an organization or as a church? And then how does the tech help you do that or not? You don't want to be a tech at all. Yeah, right. So I think that's the question that a lot of organizations have to ask.
I mean, it seems that AI has lots of potential to solve some of these ministry challenges, mostly in the administrative side and scaling up things. It's also creating ministry opportunities and problems to be solved as well. Paul, your organization that you're in Silicon Valley is faith, work, and tech. One of the big challenges and questions that people have is all work is going to be disrupted by this. What's the ministry challenge that gets presented in the coming years where even, let's just say the employment numbers are massively overinflated, the challenges we're not going to go to zero employment like Elon might suggest, but we're going to go to 5%, 10% in certain demographics. How are churches in the Valley thinking about that?
What they really need is someone to write a book on work and AI.
And you can find that book.
Anybody that's written that book?
Other than the shameless self-promotion opportunity that I will divert from there, I think I agree with you. It's an important topic.
It's probably wait a couple of months until it's discounted.
Yeah. You can wherever you get your books. But honestly, like this seems to be like not just a challenge of how to use this stuff for our work, but it's going to create some challenges to minister into the whatever deficit is created by AI in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting in the things in Silicon Valley workplaces move so quickly, and so like with Meta, at first they were literally leaderboards in offices of like who's using the most tokens.
Yes.
And you were evaluated. Now it's
a
like
weird incentive structure.
Yeah. And now they're like, oh, never mind, because it turns out that's really expensive.
Yes.
And so now they've like reversed course on all of that stuff.
Like, please stop using Fable 5.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
like it's just like whiplash for people of trying to figure out. And then I think trying to understand, well, who am I and what am I doing? And now I'm supposed to have 50 agents doing my work. And so I think really like, a lot of people talk about this, like we're created to work. Yeah. We're created to do productive work. And so helping people to identify some of those lies of like, the perfect world is one where my AI agents do all my work for me and I just relax. Like that's not a biblical vision of work. Yeah, right. And so helping people with those kinds of things. And then just pastorally, like there's a lot of turmoil with transition and chaos and helping people navigate that on a personal level.
Yeah. I mean, we've just seen the past couple of weeks, Amazon, big layoffs, Meta, big layoffs, Microsoft this week, big layoffs, WPP, globally, the advertising network and agency being drastically affected by AI and both a proponent of it and also pointing at that's the reason that they are doing layoffs. Yep. So how are you thinking that, you minister to people in that moment? who are, whose lives are, for better or worse, being affected by AI, there seems to be something that we as the church should be responding to there.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, in some sense, it's not that new. I mean, it is about AI, but also for the last 20 years, there have been massive hiring cycles and massive layoff cycles in Silicon Valley. So AI is definitely kind of blamed for everything today, whether it's good or bad, whether there's hiring or, and I'm sure there's some truth to that, but I think it's really, it's kind of like you talk about the small church that just like people connection, like it's just the basics. How do you connect with people? How do you form them in communities, and how do you help them sort through what they're going through?
Do you think some of the difficult areas for church leaders may be in some of the areas that AI is bringing as new pastoral issues? So I agree with you that in what we're talking about here, people have lost jobs, ever since there's been jobs.
Right.
But one of your congregants falling in love with a chatbot is something that is more difficult for people to get their head around, and for a pastor to think, how do I treat this as just another human relationship, or do I treat this as something different, and do I give credibility to it? And so that it feels to me that there's a bit of a shift there that does need some attention to help pastors pastor in that context.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whether it's like romantic relationships or spiritual mentorship or those kinds of things. And I think pastors don't know. I think we'll have to figure out as a church and as pastors how to speak clearly on that, but also there's going to be a lot of shame associated with those things. I think it's going to, because it's so isolating, and you like pour your heart out, and then you start to kind of insulate yourself. So I think we'll have to learn how to invite people into that space where they feel safe to talk about it. Yeah. And it's just so fast. We have to figure those things out. It's going to take us some time.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of us, are spending a lot of time thinking about this topic. Obviously, some to a greater or lesser extent in terms of our professional day jobs, but it's affecting all of us on a personal level. A story that I write about in my book, AI at Work, available the 3rd of September. There'll probably be some kind of like superimposed book cover here in post if we can do that. Okay, but is where it really hit home for me a few weeks ago was our vicar's son, Sam, who is speaking on stage this week at the conference. He and I have been talking. He's 16. He's thinking about what A levels to take, which is in the UK for our international viewers. The exams you take to kind of graduate from high school and choose what to go on and do next. And we've had this back and forth, he and I, for several weeks about what topics to pick. Where does that put you in terms of university placements? What job does that set you up for in not just 2 years' time, but 5 or 7 years' time. And it seems that is a challenge that we just are very ill prepared for, to kind of have that discussion. If we're even 50% of the predictions that come out of these major companies are accurate, even if 25% of them are accurate, the world is going to look incredibly different in 7 years' time. So, and then just around the table, just how is this showing up for you in kind of personal journeys in your communities?
Well, I mean, so we have a 7-year-old, and she's talking to me about AI because her teacher is teaching her about AI, and they're having conversations at that level. And I've been a bit on the back foot because I've been like, I wasn't ready to talk to you about this. I thought I had to talk to you about other stuff. But what was really interesting the other day, last week, we have an Alexa in our kitchen.
You've just set off about
I know.
thousands.
Sorry. Alexa, play ABBA.
Yeah.
She asked Alexa a question, and it was the answer was wrong.
Okay.
And so I had to say to her, "Oh, sweetheart, that's not actually the right answer. I can't actually remember. It'd be great if I could remember what the question was, but I can't actually remember what the question was." But I said, "No, that's not correct." She said, "Well, but Alexa said it."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, yeah, Alexa, but Alexa's not always right."
Right.
And it was a really interesting moment for her to realize that what she sees as a fount of all knowledge was not actually accurate 100% of the time. Yeah. And a really important lesson for her to learn. But I think that she's a 7-year-old, and this is just part of her life. Yeah. But there's some stuff that we need to, as parents, navigate with that.
Yeah. What about you, Kit? Is it showing up?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing would be my husband's just been diagnosed as a celiac, and actually it's change for us as a family. But it's really helpful to just scan a thing and be like, can he eat this? Nope. Can he eat this? Nope. So, I think I'm finding it very helpful for navigating my kids. I've got twins, they've just started school. Like, there's so many apps and so much information and so many decisions to make. It's a helpful search tool, but again, there's that critical thinking element of like, what's being surfaced to me? Like, how am I going to, like, what am I going to do with this? And similar with my kids, they don't know about AI yet, but they know about Google. And if we're walking around, and one of my kids just loves knowledge, like, she just has questions about everything. It's such lovely curiosity. But she will often, if I don't know the answer, and I'll say, maybe we can check that out, she'll be like, ask Google. And I can just see that will naturally morph into, let's ask AI. And so again, thinking, what's the critical thinking she needs? What's the framework? It's a good tool, it's helpful, but what is guiding our decisions? So I think me and my husband are thinking a lot about what's the role of tech in our family.
And that's quite a big shift, though, isn't it? Because I remember thinking my dad knew everything. And so he had all the answers. And
don't worry, she's never thought that.
she's literally never thought that. And so, but I do think about that. You know, I think I'm not the fount of all knowledge for her. No. So, but Alexa might be. So where's my place in that?
I mean, you've welcomed that into your home, right, with smart speakers. It's coming in through school and they're talking about it as well. I mean, Gareth and I had the joy of experiencing earlier this year when we were in Silicon Valley, sharing a Waymo together for the first time. You know, these are the autonomous cars that are driving themselves around your hometown. Like, some of this stuff, you can't avoid it. It's like literally in the fabric of society, in the way in which you work. So I don't know, Paul, how you're navigating kind of that balance of where families do and don't, you know, but your own and others, it seems inescapable.
It's totally inescapable. But it's funny for me because my kids are in their early 20s. Right. And I'm way more interested in AI than they are.
Okay, interesting.
They make fun of me. They're like, Dad, stop using AI. And they don't trust it. But
why do you think that is, though? That's fascinating. You would think that generation on the cusp of being in the workplace or, you know, becoming future leaders themselves would be leaning into all of these opportunities.
Yeah, I think probably, I mean, they're not going to be AI natives. Like, they're not, you know, they're like digital natives, but they're not AI natives. And it came out when they were in school, like mostly university. And so they were told not to use it. And I think that issue of AI being wrong, like one of my kids told me they're having some problem with their car. And I was like, oh, well, just like take a picture of it and ask Claude. Yeah. And they were like, but it might be wrong. Then I'd have to go and research. And to them, that felt like more work. And so I think they are just less confident in it. But it's everywhere in the Bay Area. And I mean, we have self-driving cars that drive us everywhere. I rarely touch my steering wheel anymore.
Can I just say, amazing. Paul and I had a Zoom call about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. He was doing the Zoom call or the Google Meet from a driverless car. And so he was moving, but he wasn't driving. But he didn't mention it. So I was like, is he driving, or is he? Why is he taking a video call And so anyway, I was freaked out the entire call.
It's a changing world for sure. There's so much we could dive into, but I want to get some questions from our audience. So maybe a couple of you might want to ask a couple of questions. If you at home also want to ask questions of these panelists and also dig into these topics, we would love to see you at a future conversation live or in person in the conferences that we've got coming up over the next year. So just a reminder, you can find out more information about those at missional.ai and subscribe to this show where there'll be lots more of these conversations to come. But for those in the room, anybody got a burning question that they want to ask? Don't all rush at once. If you can tell us who you are and where you come from.
Hi, so I'm Kevin from Premier. So when I grew up, I had to learn to read a map because we didn't have sat-navs. And therefore, I know how to use a map. But if you've grown up with a sat-nav, you probably never learned to use a map. With AI taking on a much more significant role in our knowledge and understanding of the world, is there a risk that we become digital dependents, as in we don't learn the core skills and the building blocks, and therefore we become essentially locked into these tools through which we need to live our lives?
Yeah. You want to pick up on that first?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's a risk. But the example of the map is an interesting one, because I agree, like when I was a scout when I was growing up, and so I knew how to use a map and the compass and all the things, but I also didn't live in a world where I knew where I was on a map all the time. And so what is true for me now, like I'm used to seeing a blue dot on a map that shows me where I am. And so pretty much anywhere I ever am, I have a sense of where I am in the world, where that wasn't true before. So I think I lost something because I can't use a paper map, but I gained something that I have this like visual understanding of the world, and I know my spot on it at almost any point in my life. So I'm wondering if there's something where we will definitely lose something with AI, but I don't know if we've found yet what we're gaining with that. And maybe there's nothing, maybe it'll all be lost, but it seems like there could be something new we gain as well.
I think there's something maybe adjacent to your point, Kevin, is that from a organizational perspective, one of the things we've been really keen to explore with organizations is that they don't delegate thought leadership to AI, because they still need to think things about things, and they still need to have an opinion about best practice and an opinion about why they do what they do. And if they outsource that to AI, then it's a shell at that point, and there's no real depth to what's going on. So I think AI can be a really good partner in that process, and I think it can help shape some of your thinking. But I think we still have to think, and I think that's really important. But I also think we shouldn't just, because I think there's a danger on the other side of seeing progress as negative because of how things used to be. Yeah. I was thinking this the other day that, we run an agency that is predominantly in 3 different continents, in the US and the UK and in Australia. I couldn't do that 20 years ago. I probably couldn't do it 10 years ago. Yeah. So I feel very grateful for the technology that I now have, that I can now speak to all these different parts of the world and be responsive. But it's obviously all in balance.
Yeah, and I would say in terms of the map, your purpose isn't to read the map. What's the outcome you're looking for? And you can still achieve that. So it's coming back again to like, what's your purpose? What are you doing? And whether you're an artist and what makes you feel alive is actually creating art, keep creating the art. Yeah. But if it's, cut in your agency, cutting down some admin so that you can do better quality, you can scale, you can amplify, you can support charities and mission, amazing, adopt it. So I think for me, it always comes back to what's the purpose? What's the outcome? Yeah. And how can technology help you in that?
I mean, this is a great irony that all the guys that are coming up with these big tech companies in the US also seem to be prepping and building bunkers. So I don't know,
there's a lot of that.
Maybe the map reading skills and the fire lighting and, kind of how many tins of tomato soup they've got in their driveways is concerning as well. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, great skill. Asher in the front row, you had a question. Who are you? Where'd you come from?
Hey, I'm Asher. I'm the founder of Awake Studios, a social media business helping founders use social media well and for good. If Gareth is a glass half full, then I'm sometimes a glass overflowing. And I've just read Spark by Al Gordon, and so I'm super excited about the future and all that kind of thing. But I'm interested in what you talked about earlier when you said, who do these models serve? Like, who are they working for? And I'm interested, as a 20-year-old, how do we ask the right questions, teach the right lessons, and implement the right policy and, things for the next generation to make sure that it serves us and not just the middle-aged bunker building founders in the US?
Well said.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I was talking to someone today around a lot of the work I do is sort of global development, charities that are working globally. And a lot of the large sort of enterprise models are filled with northern data. So they're not actually, there's a lot of value in them, but they're not contextual. They don't understand local cultures and maybe idioms and metaphors and how things work. So there's a lot of conversations, I would say, in sort of the AI for good, especially humanitarian, global space around sort of local AIs, sovereign AI. What does it look like to develop your own model, and what does it look like to do that that is contextual? Will that help with some of the power dynamics we're seeing and some of these bigger questions we have, and not having to pack a go bag for your bunker, but also will that help with the environmental issues as well? Because if it's a smaller model, it's not going to be. So I think it's such an important question, and I think over as the sector and sort of organizations start to settle into, we can't avoid AI, it is here, it's in everything. There is the element of, not just how am I using it, but what model am I using, and am I comfortable with that? Or actually, do we need something better? Do we need something that is, specifically for a country, or specifically for a dialect, or specifically for a context?
That's good. Paul, who do these models serve?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can. I would frame it as like, how do we help them serve us? And so I think they can serve people, but to me, it's a tool, and we need to learn to use tools. And so you're not born learning to use a hammer, and like you need to learn to use a hammer to hammer nails. But if you put a hammer in like a room of middle schoolers, they're probably going to hit each other with it. So like you need to teach them that's not the way you use this tool. And the problem is that AI you can very quickly go from using it to do something productive to using it to do something destructive. But I think, so like one of the frames that I often say is AI is a great librarian, but a bad teacher. So we can ask it, like I use it in Bible study a lot, but I always say, what do scholars say about this word or this verse? Or give me a survey of patristic thought on this topic rather than what does this verse mean? So I think you need to use it in the right way. And that's just going to take time for people to figure out those things of like, how do we use this tool so that it serves us well? And then how do we know those lines where this is not going to serve us well? And I love your framing of like, keep the purpose in mind. Yeah. That's a really helpful goal. Like, it's all about how do we achieve our purpose? That the tool is just a way to get there. And so keeping that purpose forefront is really great.
The only thing I would add is I think that one of the big challenges we've got is that there's not a lot of public education going on in this spaces, right? So who they serve is one thing, but like how do even people know what the rights and wrongs are of these is, we're massively lacking public service information to help kind of lean into that. And you mentioned sovereign AI or different kind of models. All of those are going to require support structures around them. Just getting the models kind of better aligned is one thing, but the education that goes around it is going to be a huge other topic.
Is part of the reason for that the pace of change?
It's partly the pace of change, but it's also that, we are waiting on someone to come up with the answer, right? And so I think a lot of governments or a lot of industry groups in different sectors are waiting around for someone to come up with the answer from the companies. Right. The companies are not going to do that themselves. There's no commercial incentive for them to do that. Yeah. But we know that AI safety and in forms of all safety comes around really from public education, and there's not yet enough mobilization to do that. So I think part of our mission here is to try and do that for the church community and for the faith community, but we need it at a much broader scale as well. So it's a real challenge that I think everyone's having to face up to. But great question, Asha. Thank you. We've probably got time to take one last one if anyone's got a question. Okay, Shante, we've got one last question. Go on, Shante. Shante, who are you? Where do you come from?
I'm Shante. I'm from South Africa and I work for Biblica. I'm a data manager. I think one question I always have is how do we bridge the gap between US, UK, Europe, and Africa? Because Africa adoption rate to AI is always 5 years, 10 years behind. I think if I ever see a self-driving car in my lifetime in Africa, it will be a miracle. But it would just be interesting to know what you guys think about how do you think the adoption rate can perhaps be with Africa with AI, and B, the educational gap, because there's a very big educational gap in AI coming to Africa and how people can use AI. Like some people would think AI is literally ChatGPT, and it's a part of it, but it's not just AI. So just like what your thoughts are on the Africa trend and how Africa can pick up with AI and where it is going. And we will probably never be a Silicon Valley, but at least just bracing that gap culturally wise, like you also mentioned, but also just like educational wise, where we are standing on AI.
Yeah. Maybe just one small point on this is I think historically with Africa, it hasn't been an economic powerhouse as it is predicted to be in the next 20 years. So the resources to be more involved or more at the front end of some of this stuff will be there. It'll just be a question of whether they're used in a way that facilitates that. I think I'm right in saying this from a Christian perspective. I think I'm right in saying this may need fact checking. But
sorry, we'll ask Alexa.
Ask Alexa. An average evangelical now is a 14-year-old Nigerian girl. And I'm pretty sure I heard that at Lausanne, and so I'm now attributing it to Lausanne as well, just so that it's not my thing. But that is a big deal. It changes the shape of the church as well as the shape of technology. And so I think people are aware of this, and so I think there will be not only an internal resourcing that will be available, but also an external awareness of the fact that Africa is the place where this growth is happening and needs the maybe some of the external expertise to be able to help some of this. So I'm not an expert in this space, but I would say that because of those factors, it may not be the same trend that has been previously because of what's available going forward.
Yeah, I think as with a lot of things, I mean, it's very easy to be focused on the technology because it is a technology, but technology is always born out of an economy. And so it's really like social media was not a tech problem. Technology behind social media is pretty primitive. It's the economy behind social media that created the problem. And so I think in developing countries, it's an economical problem more than a technology problem. And so where there's a market, the technology goes. And so if that's changing, then that'll guide the way. But it's not. Economies aren't built for justice, for world flourishing. They're built to make money. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can lead to bad things. Yeah. And so solving those economic problems, I think that technology problems will follow.
Yeah. What's striking is that I think in a lot of the conversations where we run into the ethics questions or the concerns in the West in particular, and particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, are problems around, AI in schools, or we don't want that, or AI in mental health care or other things like that. Problems that actually for large swathes of the African population, a AI educator would be way better than the access they have to a human educator at the moment. So I think there can be even a Western bias in the way in which we think about the problem set, let alone the solutions in the first place.
I was going to say, I wonder if there's a parallel around sort of renewable clean energy. Yeah. So say the UK, it would be incredibly hard for us to move off grid to totally renewable. Whereas actually in a lot of different contexts, because there is no grid, setting up renewable energy helps you leapfrog. You're already on clean. Yeah. And I wonder if with the opportunity that comes with AI to help with lots of challenges, and also because it is through the network, it is digital. Yeah. If you've got a mobile phone, you've got access, which, I mean, if you've got a mobile phone, there are many people that don't have internet access. But I wonder if there's also an opportunity there for sort of leapfrogging it. It doesn't have to take the journey. Yeah,
and we've seen the same thing with like M-Pesa and things like that. Across Africa, Kenya becoming such a hub for kind of digital banking in that early revolution, being able to jump the credit card straight to digital. So maybe there are opportunities for something similar there as well. But we need to continue to advocate for it to make it happen. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to our lovely audience. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. Thank you for being here. And thank you all to our panel. If you enjoyed this episode and if you enjoy these live episodes and want to see more of them, then maybe you'll let us know in the comments below. Maybe we might get a rowdy French person from the back of the room on next time. Who knows what happens? But we would love to have you in another conversation. This has been the Missional AI podcast. You can find out more about Missional AI at missional.ai, where you can sign up for our newsletter, join the Slack community, register for future events coming up over the next 12 months, and find the archive of all of the events that we've done this year at Silicon Valley, here in London, previous years as well. And you can get in touch with all of these folks through that channel as well. So if you would like to do that, we would love to see you there. I've been your host, James Poulter. Thank you so much to Kit Panny, to Gareth Russell, and to Paul Taylor for being our guests on this episode. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you all.